like that out on their bullshit, I need to be polite about it. I have to be, well, actually, I did read this in that exact book that you are now referring to, and it actually says this because I've read it like 15 times.
I almost raised my hand when she said Shakespeare has no context.
Subtext.
Subtext. That is so much fucking horseshit.
I was actually kind of glad that you started.
I mean, Shakespeare has loads of fucking subtext. It's just that you have to be very fucking adamant about fucking finding it. And that is why usually when people do Shakespeare, it tends to be very pedestrian.
Well, because I feel like she has a bit of a point in that typically most of the characters, if they feel something,
they'll say it out.
They will totally just say it out loud, whether it's to the audience or to another character.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the subtext is done away with by just bringing it to the forefront. But I think there is further subtext.
Like that's
that
not
they
all
don't
of
discuss.
It. That's not all
exactly.
of it. Yeah. Like we had a class together, just like to kind of just to go into the subtext of Shakespeare.
Yeah,
the
classical like, what are they actually saying?
Exactly.
That was one of the funniest notes I've ever received in an acting class ever, because it's so true. We did a scene from Two Gentlemen of Verona, and the first note I got was, okay, so remember, this is just two people talking to each other. And I was like, right, okay, because, we have this whole mystique about Shakespeare.
Yeah, we do.
But ultimately it's just two people speaking normally to each other in very, complex, colorful language. Mm-hmm. But one of my favorite lines in that play that I didn't even quite understand, and this is actually, there's a lot of like perverted, not necessarily subtext, but like double entendre. There's this one line that is, and I'm trying to do this verbatim, but I probably will fail terribly. It is, a man is not a man, I say, if with his tongue he cannot win a woman. First time you hear that, you're like, oh, like poetry, like he's,
Yeah, definitely.
Or he's like very clever and he like charms women. But then you look a little deeper and you're like, holy shit, they're talking about cunnilingus. That's incredible.
Yeah. No, Shakespeare is quite the perverted bastard.
So once I feel like once you realize all of that, that's where it also starts to become really fun to read through all of Shakespeare.
But fucking Cymbeline that I'm in right now, the fucking character that I play, I think that he's had some stuff going on with his brother that he grew up in the same cave as since the age of like 2. And also when fucking Imogen comes out disguised as this boy, Fideli. It's sort of like, ooh, I love thee, fair youth, and blah, 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 and I'll make it my comfort. He is a man, I love him as a brother. And such a welcome as I would give to you after long absence, such is yours. And it's sort of like this perverted, brotherly love, a bit somewhere.
Are you going to tell your director that?
My director is very well aware of this.
Okay.
He laughed about it when we started speaking about it.
All right.
He was just laughing.
He likes it?
No, he was just laughing and was like, "What am I going to say?"
In this with the head shaking. Do you know he does that?
Yeah.
What?
He does this when he's thinking.
When he's about to make a point,
like,
he's.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Yeah.
And I also love his hello, gang.
I love it. Yeah,
I love it.
I love him. Yeah, he's
it's one of those things that
great.
Distinctly sticks that person out in your brain.
Yeah,
as like a
really.
Person. Yeah. Those little things. It's like they just stick with you for some reason. I love it.
And something that I love with him is that he actually really treats you as an adult.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think that I understand why when you're growing up and you're going through middle school and high school and all that, they do kind of treat you like you're a kid, because you are a kid. But I feel like if they just approached you on the level of another person, it's a better way of teaching. And that's why I like college, because they're like, we're not going to do this great scholarly authority. And I say this as a community college member. I'm sure that if you go to an Ivy League school in some ancient part of the country,
it all depends on what you're studying,
that there's all sorts of people who are very, very, like, I don't know.
I mean, different disciplines demands different stuff. I mean, if you go into the STEM field, you need to spend loads of time doing fucking math. And math has a very specific way of being solved.
Right.
And unless you are like the next fucking Stephen Hawkins, you have nothing to do in trying to figure out the next best way to figure this shit out.
Right.
Because you need to have fucking brain matter that's out of this world to be able to breach through the fucking Newtonian mathematics.
Right. But I feel like if they just approach you on your level, that's what I like about all of the teachers at Foothill, is that they just speak to you like another person. And I feel like, especially history, I feel should be taught that way. Because there's a lot of cool shit in history that we teach people that is wrong.
Yeah, I mean,
my favorite example, I think they covered this in the Cracked podcast, actually. It might even specifically be on the podcast, but it's definitely in the D textbook about how we tell the story of Washington and the cherry tree. And how he was honest that he cut down his dad's cherry tree.
Isn't that story bullshit?
It's complete bullshit.
Yeah,
that shit never happened. But then you
it's
get
a
other
moral lesson for the kids.
And Newton and the apple.
But it's fucking stupid because there are way cooler stories. Like there was one time where Washington, I believe he wrote his brother or some other confidant of his, and he said, "Man, I really love the battlefield sometimes. It's really exhilarating having bullets flying over your head, like whizzing past you. It gets my blood going." And King George intercepted that letter, and he wrote Washington a letter that was like, "Oh, you like bullets? Hell, we'll give you a few hundred extra." And then George Washington fucking won. And there's great stories like that, but no, we don't tell that shit in school because.
It might be problematic to teach the children that the founders of the nation actually did enjoy violence, and it might create this feeling of them being violent in the future. So
it can be. People can be violent.
And you know what's some shit though?
Everyone's friendly and honest.
Everyone is really fucking friendly.
Yes.
Everyone will care about your feelings.
Just
Go
like
out into the world and say that you are offended by someone walking down the street. They will totally stop walking down that street. You know, because they will respect your feelings.
Frederick, you know what you should do? You should watch the latest South Park episode. That's exactly what they talked about.
Well,
it's so great.
And you know what's remarkable, though, is that when it comes to learning what I think would be a far more valuable life lesson, and you're not going to teach this to the kind of age that kids are being told the cherry tree story, but we didn't thoroughly cover Vietnam in any of my schooling experience. We covered World War II, and especially the Civil War, which is a very important one to cover. We
very important, especially for
we
here.
covered the Civil War like
crazy, yeah.
Fucking mad.
I was
we
AP
learned
history.
a ton about that
yeah.
shit. And there's a little tray right next to you with some Minet balls and old bullets from the Civil War that I got in Georgia. My grandparents bought them for me.
That
Very
is
cool.
really cool.
And I have a great fascination of war history. But we never learned about Vietnam. And I'm not going to say never. We very briefly covered it, kind of glazed over it. But there's tons of stories to come out of that and tons of moral ambiguity. You know, it's like we weren't the good guys.
No, I mean...
we were kind of being giant assholes, and we're doing what we're doing right now, which is occupying a place that we basically have no business in. But we don't want to teach that to high schoolers, because we want to make it seem like America is the best country in the world, we're the best for everyone, and everybody should be our friends.
But here's the thing. I mean, if you look at places like Europe, and you look at the way that Europe is going, especially the fucking EU and the Eurozone, it is going to fucking shambles. I mean, the US sort of took, when in its creation, it took the best values from Europe, distilled it to its pureness, and created this nation.
Right.
And that feeling is still here among the people.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, sure, there might be issues with governments, but guess what? Everyone has issues with governments.
Yeah.
Europe is going to shit when it comes to fucking politics. Sweden is a clusterfuck right now. But I mean, being here as a fucking foreign student, I have so much fun because I can discuss basically anything with anyone. I've had huge fucking discussions with really believing Christians and Muslims about why I don't buy into their fucking fairy tales. And after I've, installed and stepped all over their religion with why I don't support that line of thought, they've been like, yeah, you know what, let's go and grab a cup of coffee and just be civil,
Yeah.
Have a fucking polite discussion. But this was fun, but we could have more fun together.
Right.
That doesn't exist in Europe. No matter if it's Christians, butthurt Christians that might feel offended by me just saying that, yeah, you know what, that entire book it's all a bunch of bullshit.
Frederick, I see your point, but that's not a United States thing. That's a California thing.
I would say that pretty heavily, because go out to the Bible Belt,
Yeah,
and start talking your
I wouldn't
heavy
be an idiot like
and
that.
talk about your heavy atheism stuff, and those people they won't crucify you. In fact, oftentimes they're very polite in the way that they counter you, but you also get plenty of the loud minority of like, you know, the
I've always wanted to have a verbal argument with one of those, and just fucking film it for the hell of it.
yeah,
You know,
I mean. Yeah, there's go and walk into a Baptist church in the South, and you'll get an earful. Trust me.
Yeah, no, I mean, I wouldn't do that. I don't walk into, fucking religious homes and go like, oh, instead of fucking crucifix, guess what? Bullshit.
Yeah, no, you don't go out of your way to be an asshole, because that's exactly what you're fighting against for the most part.
Yeah,
I feel. Is don't be a dick, which is ultimately my mantra of life.
Yeah, but I can be a dick against people that are acting like dicks, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Now, if somebody's being a dick, then you have to counter them somehow. You can't just let them be a dick.
And that is.
I guess we should tell Frederick to shut the fuck up when he talks in class.
But I'm not trying to be a dick. You can't.
I know.
Yeah,
I'm just giving
you can't say that I'm being, like douchey. Well, excuse me, miss.
You are not correct.
You are so far off the map right now that you fell over the edge of the planet Earth fucking years ago.
Jesus. Well, that's a clipped mic.
Yes, it is. I tried to do that a couple of times for podcasts.
Great. Want to keep the quality high. The hedonist, bringing you clipped mics since 1987.
I think I fucked up on this.
How do you mean?
So, I wasn't watching, so I was listening to you guys talking.
You inhaled from the wrong side of your e-cigarette. Yeah, that's...
Yeah.
Just give it some time. I'm sure it'll get better.
And then it started flashing nonstop. And then it became really hot.
I'm sure it'll be fine.
I was like, what?
That's a really funny boom in California right now. Actually, China, too.
What's up?
It's becoming dangerous in China to the point where people just want e-cigs so much that they're producing them with like industrial shite that is terrible for you.
What?
And then they're putting them on the market because China. A big thing
I know
in China is
they
don't really care about the public's health.
If
they're willing to buy shitty stuff with lead in it, they'll let them. But in the U.S., we're like, we probably shouldn't give lead to the people. And they're going through this huge boom. E-cigs are like huge over there right now. Yeah.
Yeah, here's the thing, man. Like, Chinese people, they're all about profits. Yeah. All about what gives me benefits, what benefits me. Mm-hmm. They're very selfish. Mm-hmm. Like, like on the street, if you get hit by a car accidentally, maybe you get a little scratch, you gotta think like, okay, so how much can I rip off from this guy? Can I fucking blackmail him to I fucking shatter my bones, my hip, you gotta give me 10,000 RMB or something.
I don't remember what video it was, but it was a compilation, and it was actually from China.
Exactly.
A guy who was standing in the middle of the road, he waited for a car to slow down, and he just fucking ran up to it.
Yeah.
Turned around and threw himself on the hood.
It's one of the little quirks there. I believe I've heard this. This is from when my friend went to China. It might be different now. But he said that when people cross the street there, they look into the pavement. Because if you're making eye contact with somebody who hits you with their car, it's your fault.
No.
No?
That's not true.
Okay, because he went in the 90s. Okay. And I know that shit changes.
Then maybe 90s, maybe, I don't know. But nowadays, definitely not a rule. That's a fucked up rule, man.
Speaking of China, speaking of fucked up shit, when Mao had completed his fucking revolution, he was going through China in a train. And one of the paroles that he had, won the people over with was that every family should have a chicken on the table and rice. And they were riding past a village. And he was like, stop the train, I want to go to that village. And I want to see that everything is the way I promised that it should be, because otherwise I would be a bad leader. But, something happened, so he was delayed in the train, and he wasn't allowed to leave because of security reasons for a few hours. And then he was led into town, and all families were sitting happily at the dinner table with fresh rice and a chicken, smiling fucking ear to ear. And he was like, I am a good leader.
You know what time period that was?
I am not entirely sure.
That's definitely after Civil War.
Yeah, I think it was. And it's just,
Dude, it's just, in China, I know, because I have Chinese friends, and I go back to China, Shanghai, that's where my parents live, every summer or so, sometimes Christmas. Mm-hmm. And, I don't know, the kids, they're just our age, 20s. For you, not a little bit far.
I'm still in my fucking 20s.
Late 20s, man.
Oi. Don't be fucking mean here.
Okay.